Welcome to Conspiracist. Today we're taking a deep dive into a really compelling question. It's the hypothesis that governments, perhaps intentionally, have concealed evidence of unexplained archaeological finds. We'll be looking closely at the core arguments, the information that's out there, and we'll approach this with a strictly professional, objective perspective. Our goal is really to evaluate the reasoning behind these claims.
It's definitely a fascinating area, and it's interesting to think about why this kind of idea resonates so much, isn't it? Some of our background material touches on this, how exploring seemingly pseudoscientific ideas can actually be used to sharpen critical thinking. There were courses, even early ones, that sort of used fantastic archaeology to teach students how to evaluate evidence properly.
That's an interesting approach, using the unusual to teach rigor. And it seems this fascination with the mysteries of the past isn't exactly new. Things like the internet, certain TV specials from years back, they definitely brought more, let's say, speculative ideas into the mainstream.
Yeah, they did. And you see how certain puzzling ancient finds just naturally capture the public's imagination?
Makes sense. People love a good mystery.
Exactly. And this leads to an interesting point about a kind of second option bias. If the standard explanation for something feels maybe incomplete to someone, they might be more open to considering alternative theories,
Okay, so a gap in understanding leaves room for other ideas to creep in.
Precisely. And belief itself is a huge factor here. What counts as compelling evidence for one person might be totally different for another. Someone might focus purely on physical artifacts, while someone else might bring in, say, spiritual interpretations.
And that difference in what people accept as proof can be significant.
It can. There's also this idea that if people start believing we can't really know the past, it might perhaps undermine trust in experts generally.
A kind of erosion of confidence in established knowledge.
Potentially. There was even a suggestion this could ripple outwards, maybe affecting how people view information in other areas of life too.
Right. So this mix of public curiosity, maybe some gaps in the official story and different standards of evidence, it creates fertile ground for these theories of concealment.
It's a good way to put it. So with that context, let's maybe look at some specific examples that often get brought up, but always keeping that objective lens, focusing on the available information.
Okay. Where should we start? How about the Nazca geoglyphs?
Good example. There was a recent survey, using AI actually, that practically doubled the number of known figurative glyphs.
Doubled. Wow. So technology revealed much more than we knew.
It did. And what's interesting is the distinction they found. There are these relief-type glyphs, humans, modified animals, often found near trails, maybe for individuals or small groups.
Okay. More personal, perhaps?
Perhaps. And then you have the huge line-type glyphs, giant wild animals, further from the trails. The thinking there is maybe they were for larger community rituals.
So different types, different potential purposes, and the fact that AI was needed to find so many more, it suggests our earlier methods just weren't capturing the whole picture, right?
Yeah. Exactly. It highlights how technology evolves our understanding. Limitations in past tech don't automatically mean someone was hiding something. It just means we couldn't see it yet.
A really important point. Okay, what about specific artifacts? There are always stories about mysterious objects.
Ah, yes, the out-of-place artifacts idea. Some sources list quite a few, like that incredibly well-preserved ceremonial chariot found in Pompeii.
I remember seeing about that. Stunningly intact, wasn't it?
It really was. Intricate decorations, suggesting it wasn't for everyday use, probably for special occasions, parades, that kind of thing. Status symbol, maybe?
Right. And what else?
Well, there's a much older find, a 3,200-year-old spider mural from northern Peru. What's intriguing is that the spider motif includes a knife.
A knife? Why?
We don't know for sure. Spiders might have been linked to rain or fertility for the Cupidnic people who likely made it, but the knife's role, that's still debated. An open question.
Okay, and then there's the big one that always comes up, the Antikythera mechanism, often called an ancient computer.
Yes, and described pretty dramatically sometimes as something that shouldn't exist for its time.
Why is it considered so advanced?
Its sophistication is just remarkable. It wasn't just decorative. It could actually predict eclipses, track planetary movements.
Predict eclipses. Back then.
That's what the analysis suggests. And incredibly, inscriptions found on parts of it seem to act like a user guide. It was meant to be used.
A user guide on an ancient mechanism. That's amazing.
It is, and research is ongoing. Modern analysis keeps revealing more about its complexity, sort of opening up a new world of secrets about their technological capabilities.
It definitely challenges assumptions about ancient technology.
No question. It shows a level of mechanical engineering we didn't expect for that period.
Okay, so we have these complex artifacts. What about massive structures? Megaliths.
Ah, yes. The Baalbek stones often feature in these discussions, particularly the Trilithon, 3 enormous cut stones, each weighing, 750, maybe 800 tons?
Colossal. Hard to even imagine moving them.
And there's an even larger one nearby, still partly in the quarry, estimated at around 1,650 tons.
Unbelievable. So what's the mystery there? Just the size?
It's the size, yes, but also the lack of clear answers. Who commissioned them? How exactly were they cut and moved? Why was the work apparently abandoned? We just don't have definitive knowledge on those points. And that lack of certainty, naturally, invites speculation.
Understandable. Any other examples?
Well, closer to home for some listeners, maybe there's a Fort Mountain Rock Wall in Georgia. Various theories exist, maybe built by woodland Indians, or there's a legend about a Welsh explorer named Madoc.
Legends, though. Not solid proof.
Exactly. Much of it seems rooted in folklore rather than strong historical or archaeological evidence. The actual purpose and builders remain debated.
Okay, and what about those stone spheres in Costa Rica?
Ah, the Defy spheres. Yes, dating back to around 600 AD. They're fascinating because many are almost perfectly spherical.
How do they achieve that?
The likely method involved carefully hammering and grinding with smaller stones. Quite labor-intensive.
But why make them?
That's the puzzle. We understand how, more or less, but the why, their specific purpose, is still unknown. Status symbols, astronomical markers, religious significance. We just don't know.
So we definitely have these genuinely enigmatic finds, artifacts, structures.
Yeah.
Things that raise questions.
Absolutely. But it's also crucial to look at the other side of the coin. Instances where initial interpretations or maybe sensational claims didn't quite hold up under scrutiny.
Right, like wishful thinking taking over.
Something like that. There's a discussion about archaeology, for instance, where maybe sensationalism replaces careful scholarship. Think about the Ark of the Covenant, how many different locations have been claimed for it over the years. It shows a tendency to jump to grand conclusions sometimes.
Yeah, I've heard a few of those theories.
And remember those old emails or internet posts about giant skeletons being found?
Oh, yeah. Those photos that always looked a bit off.
Exactly. It highlights the need for, reasoned, balanced correlation in archaeology, not just accepting wild claims based on blurry pictures or stories.
Good point. We need verification.
And then there are outright hoaxes. Piltdown Man is probably the most famous archaeological example.
The fake missing link.
That's the one. It took, over 40 years for it to be definitively exposed as a deliberate fabrication. It shows how misleading finds can be accepted, at least for a while.
40 years is a long time for a hoax to last in science.
It is. And there are other examples of supposed out-of-place artifacts that turned out to be hoaxes or just misinterpretations. Things like the Calaveras skull, the Cardiff giant. Even the crystal skulls largely fall into this category now.
So caution is definitely needed. What about underwater sites, like Yonaguni in Japan?
That's another great example of ambiguity. Is the Yonaguni Monument a submerged, human-made structure? Or is it a natural geological formation that just looks artificial?
And there's no consensus.
There's still significant debate. Experts disagree. It really illustrates how difficult it can be to interpret submerged features definitively. Natural processes can create very regular-looking shapes sometimes.
So it's not always clear-cut.
Not at all. And even with known sites like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, sometimes early popular reporting can maybe overstate things or present interpretations as fact. This can sometimes feed into later pseudo-archaeological narratives that build on those initial exaggerations.
I see. So misinterpretations can snowball.
They can. And we also see specific narratives emerge, like certain Afrocentric claims about pre-contact Americas that sometimes disregard the established archaeological context. It again stresses the need to ground interpretations in the actual evidence found in situ.
And then there are the really speculative shows, like Ancient Aliens.
Right. Those types of programs often get criticized by mainstream archaeologists. The criticism is usually that they promote highly speculative theories, ancient high-tech extraterrestrial intervention, often by misrepresenting evidence, taking quotes out of context, or ignoring contradictory data.
Like the ancient airports idea. runways on mountaintops.
Exactly. That's a classic example often linked to Erich von Däniken. There's just no actual archaeological evidence to support those kinds of interpretations of sites like Nazca, for example.
So we have genuine mysteries, but also misinterpretations, hoaxes, and highly speculative theories often presented as fact in popular media.
Precisely. And all this context is crucial when we evaluate the central hypothesis we started with, intentional government concealment. It makes you ask, are these unexplained finds really being hidden? Or are they often cases of misunderstanding, exaggeration, or even fabrication that just capture the public imagination?
That leads naturally to the question of why. If there were concealment, what would the motivations be? Or what reasons did people proposing these theories give?
Well, one idea suggested is that some belief in these alternative histories, or pseudo-history, might stem from a kind of general distrust of mainstream academia.
Distrust, why?
Perhaps related to past incidents where institutions maybe weren't transparent, or a feeling that knowledge is sometimes kept exclusive.
Ah, like the idea that academic research can be hard for the public to access. Paywalls, dense language, that sort of thing.
Exactly. That perception that knowledge is sometimes squirreled away, even if unintentionally through the structures of academic publishing, could feed a narrative that information is being deliberately withheld from the public.
Okay, so a feeling of exclusion might breed suspicion.
It might. And another angle comes from looking back at, say, old historical records, like newspaper articles. Sometimes you find descriptions of perhaps lost ancient cities or unusual finds in older accounts.
And the idea is that these were known once, but then forgotten or covered up.
Or maybe just lost to time. Discoveries made, maybe noted down, but then settlements expand, materials get reused, records are lost. Not necessarily a conspiracy, just the passage of time and changing landscapes.
So alternative explanations besides active concealment exist. Distrust, access issues, maybe just things getting lost over time.
Yes. These possibilities offer ways to think about why some finds aren't common knowledge without jumping straight to a government cover-up hypothesis.
Which brings us back to the importance of critical thinking, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's vital. Evaluating the evidence for any claim, especially extraordinary ones about our past, requires careful, critical assessment.
And mainstream archaeology, the argument goes, tries to stick to the direct evidence.
That's the goal. Engage with the physical evidence, the context, what can be reasonably inferred. This sometimes contrasts with alternative approaches which might lean more heavily on speculation beyond what the direct evidence can support.
But archaeological understanding does change, right? New discoveries, new techniques.
Oh, completely. There are examples where interpretations were debated for years based on reasonable arguments from the evidence available at the time. Then, a new scientific method, like radiocarbon dating refining chronologies, comes along and settles the debate. The Olmec Maya dating discussion is sometimes cited as an example of this process. Science self-corrects as methods improve.
So acknowledging uncertainty or past errors isn't the same as admitting to a cover-up. It's part of the scientific process.
Precisely. There's a big difference between poorly argued claims within the scientific framework, which get corrected, and what we might call pseudo-archaeology, where the basic rules of evidence and logical interpretation are often disregarded or twisted to fit a preconceived idea.
So maintaining that commitment to evaluating the evidence critically is key.
It's paramount, especially when navigating these fascinating, sometimes confusing, but always intriguing questions about our deep past.
So today we've explored this hypothesis, the idea that governments might be intentionally hiding evidence of unexplained archaeological discoveries. We've looked at some of the claims, the enigmatic finds often cited, and also the various perspectives on why people might believe such concealment occurs. Throughout, we've aimed for that professional, objective approach, really focusing on evaluating the reasoning and the evidence presented in the sources available to us. I think this deep dive really highlights two things. One, the enduring mysteries that still surround our past, and two, the absolute importance of rigorous, evidence-based archaeological methods as we try to understand that history better. Thanks for listening to Conspiracist.